Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Evil Live. I'm your host, the Evil Tyrone, and we got another very, very, very special guest up in the building tonight. Horror sommelier, writer, just doing the thing out there, writing, using that pen, utilizing that pen, previous editor in chief of, We Are Horror Zine, she's written for Cinespeak, Dread Central, Uppercut Critic, and got some publications as well. You can also check her out on Bethea.medium.com, for a lot of her work as well, so let's get her in and have some fun tonight, meeting somebody else from the horror community and just getting to know them a little bit through the lens of horror. How you doing tonight, Dani?
Hi, hello everyone. Oh, that music was epic. I was over here just
Oh, listen, that means a lot. That's one of my childhood friends from actually Sacramento, California, Jonathan Bowie. He
Mhm.
does he does scores and musical production. So he hooked me up with my official theme song. So no copyright strikes over here,
Nice,
so we getting it in,
nice.
but thank you for joining the show tonight. I appreciate you coming on and chopping it up with us, getting to know you a little bit better. We follow each other on social media in the horror sphere, So I was like, I just love talking with my peers, about this thing, about this thing. So it's
It's
gonna be
lovely. The amazing thing about the internet now is where once upon a time you could only meet fellow XYZ people at a convention or at a Comic Con or whatever, but now with the internet, like we are
yeah.
like so much more like interconnected than like ever before. So this is just like brings a tear to the eye.
Yes. It's like the horrorverse, the Spider-Verse, the horrorverse,
Mhm.
we all in the gang. We all in the gang. Shout out Michael Unofficial. Thanks for stopping by, Mike. Thanks for stopping by. You know, Jaleesa the Queen in the building. Yes, got the Queen in the building one time, Lady Evil. We got Paul Draws in the building. What's up, Paul? I love his name. I love his name. We got Wilkie in the building. Thanks for stopping
Hey.
by. Thanks for stopping by. Love Wilkie's channel, as well, doing his thing. Germs up in the building. We got one half of the Rise from the Dead podcast. Finna see this man do
Good
his
people.
thing on a
Good
BlurCon
people.
stage.
Mhm.
Yes,
Very good
yes.
people.
You know, thank y'all for stopping by, for showing some love. Tonight, kicking it with the family, heavy. So we're gonna kick it off. So your horror origin story. How did
Mhm.
you get into the genre? You know,
Okay, so I was born in 1990. So I was still like at that good sweet spot as far as horror is concerned. So I had all the good stuff from the 80s and I had all that new stuff from the 90s, right? And
yes,
then my parents were born in the 50s. So they got all that good, B movie horror. They got all of the kind of the sci-fi nuclear, horror movies. And then obviously they were young people in the 80s, so they could reintroduce us to things that they had already watched. So when I say like my parents were like some of the most kind of I guess you'd say they were the seeds, if you will.
yes,
Like they introduced me obviously like to the classics. So all the Hammer horror films, all the Universal monster films, and kind of everything in between. So even some things that probably I was too young to watch, they were just like, that was a really good movie. We're watching it. So like The Thing, I was probably like way too young to have seen like The Thing at the age that I saw The Thing, but like I saw The Thing. So like I'm trying to think, were there any horror movies that they were like, oh nope, not watching that, or not, having our child exposed to that. But like I don't know, I think they were the seed, and then obviously in the 90s we still had like a ton of a lot of our kind of tentpole horror shows. So like Monster Vision on TNT. Like I remember this stuff vividly. So TNT, Monster Vision. We still had Svengoolie on. We still had I think reruns of Elvira. We still had on Turner Classic every October, where they would, change it to like Monster Fest. And like we like had so many different things that was kind of just like really good horror like throughout the year, during our childhood. It's kind of sad that like some of those things have kind of gone away, and like now we have to, like go to Shutter. We have to, well, Svengoolie is still on, is like on one of the public access channels, right? On
Yeah.
Saturday, if I remember correctly. He's on every Saturday, but like where we used to just kind of get like spoon fed like every you know what I mean? Like we used to get it, and we used to get it heavy. And plus the stuff we grew up with as kids was like they were like, no, no, no training wheels. We're gonna push you. like people think Disney now is like the soft company. No, 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 no. No children. No. So like everything we used to watch. So our Disney movies were dark. Everything that came out of what was it? What let me see what we used to have. We used to have oh gosh, if I can remember the director that made like All Dogs Go to Heaven and Land Before Time, and you know what I mean? Like we had like really mature, dark, like if it wasn't like the whole movie had some kind of essence of darkness, as you remember, there
Yeah.
was like one scene that was just like and horror, and then like and like and veer out. You know what I mean? Like we got it, and I think that's something that's kind of missing for kids now. Not that it's not there, but it used to just be
Yes.
like it's like you're watching a movie, horror, boom. Like where like now they're, it seems like that's kind of, I don't know, kind of softened a little bit, or kind of where we have like a whole bunch of nostalgic, horror, like I loved on the little television in your intro, you had the ghastly grinner, right?
Yes.
So like we have these things ingrained like right up here. And speaking of like we had Twilight Zone reruns. We had our own tentpole shows like on Nickelodeon, right? With our speaking of, right? So like we got it, and I could just kind of go on and on and on.
Listen, I love it. I love it because you're it's calling it back to the
Mhm.
origin and the nostalgia. Like I love that you brought up that back then there used to be certain scenes where it was a kids movie, but then they brought in a scene where it's just like, who is this for? Like I know Jaleesa, she was pointing out not too long ago a scene in the Black Cauldron where it was just like crazy, and I'm like this. Demented.
Yeah, like it's sad that actually speaking of the Black Cauldron, this history. If anyone else has seen it, they know that that was like when Disney was like, "Whoa, hold on, reins, we got to pull back on the reins," and that
Yeah.
actually made like Disney, backpedal for a while and say, "Okay, well, that was as dark as we're going to go."
Oh yeah, they used to, especially like back in the day, like prosthetics and the
Mhm.
era of like the 80s with experimentation and
Mhm.
the influence of that on just daytime television, with what we
Mhm.
would get in Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the
Mhm.
Dark? Like some of this stuff still scares me to this day more than, the stuff on the screen. Like, we got some dope things now, especially like independent and overseas horror. But as far as like truly horrifying, like some of the stuff, the most horrifying things were back in the day stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think when it comes to like animation, that's just coming to mind like recently that really like went there in some episodes or even whole like story arcs was Adventure Time and Steven Universe. Like I'm just like y'all when y'all leaned all the way into the horror, I was like Yeah. Give it to the kids. Give it to the kids.
Yes, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all
Mm-hmm.
about. We got Bobby likes the spooky. Bobby
Hi,
Torres in the building.
Bobby. How you
The
doing?
Taurus doing it big. Ernesto Olivo, Ernesto in the building. Thank you for stopping by, Ernesto. Thank you for
Hola,
stopping
hola.
by. Yes, showing some love. Double feature podcast, stopping by,
Hey.
showing some love. Thank y'all. Mika and Kira doing their thing, doing their thing. You
Good
know,
people.
uh,
Good people.
yes. We got Paul Draws. He says, Don Bluth is the one
Don
you
Bluth,
referring
thank
to.
you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Speaking
Yeah.
of, yep, Disney then went and did his own thing. Like Don Bluth, man. Woo. Respect. Like that's why to this day, like if people say Don Bluth and people are like, who? What? People
Yeah.
sit up, right?
Yeah, well, you got to, because you
Mm-hmm.
gotta show that respect. Germs. Imagine if a remake, horror style of All Dogs Go to Heaven, like they did Winnie. Now that'd be crazy.
Ooh. Yeah,
That'd be
especially
crazy.
like the hellfire sequence and like yeah.
Or a never-ending story, because that
Yeah,
big ass dog, that would
yeah.
be
The
crazy.
the secret of Nim, like, ooh, golly.
Or Fern Gully. Fern Gully still gives me nightmares to this damn day.
Listen. But like the way like that I would just like eat that stuff up. Like I would just be ready for it. You know what I mean? Like to the
Hmm.
point that like I'm not saying well maybe it did. Maybe the horror movies did desensitize us to a point because we were like, okay, we've seen it all like in this stuff. So like when the real world came, we're like, shoot, I've seen way scarier than that.
Exactly. I think it was desensitized. We were a
Mhm.
desensitized generation, and I think they I think that's why it's kind of harder to scare
Mhm.
certain individuals. And then some people are like, well, why are you coming at this angle? I want the monster, I want the ghost and all that stuff. But I'm like, for a lot of people, they've just been we've just been flush with it so much that you got to come from a different angle. You got to make this
Mhm.
squirrel terrify me. Now you got to make this couch. They got killer sofa on Tubi. Just this
Yeah,
couch.
like the Killer Tire movie.
Oh, Roberto or rubber
Yeah,
something.
rubber.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, and I watched it. I think
Mhm.
I got inebriated and I watched it, and I'm like, wow, I just sat there and watched the whole movie about a killer tire and
Yep.
just its escapades. Yeah.
Yep. No explanation. Just the tire is killing people. That's it. That's all. That's the premise. Tire killing. That's it.
Here we
That's
go.
it.
Yes. We got Jaleesa. She says, yes, keep Beach City weird. Yes.
Mhm.
When you said was it Steven's Universe? Like she got me this keep Beach City weird,
Mhm.
t-shirt, so gotta show some love, gotta show some love. Germs were being traumatized from the jump and didn't care. Yes, most
Yeah.
definitely. And
Which is why I think now we really can suss out the good from the bad. You know what I mean? Like we
yes,
love like our bad movies, but like when it's up there, when it's top tier, you know what I
yes.
mean? Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to Jaleesa for saying Don Bluth. Yes, Don Bluth in the building, showing some love, showing some
Mhm.
love. But yes. So that was an awesome, like, your introduction to horror was awesome, especially because it came from your family. And like you said, back then we
Mhm.
were engrossed in like all of this quality content. Like I feel like
Mhm.
nowadays we may get some quality content, but it may be like a season or so, and then
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
gone off TV, and we got to cop it on physical media if they decide to put it on physical media.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's always, I don't know, it's always a thing.
Yeah.
But like, what's your opinion on international horror? Do you mess with international horror?
Oh, hello. Hello, am I the horror sommelier? Hello. Now listen, everybody. And I think we're also the generation we're like, what subtitles? I love some subtitles. So yeah, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
it'll open your mind, and because I'm also a reader and I'm a learner and all that. Like if it's a culture that I'm not familiar with, this horror could be like a gateway to be like, okay, this is, their interpretation of a vampire. This is their take on ghosts. This is their take on, what I mean, their boogeyman or
Yes.
their giant creatures, or you know what I mean? Like, all of these different international horror movies are giving us something like so unique. And if I try to hear about them, I try to watch them legally. Wink. Legally. I try to watch them legally. But like, yeah, I love international horror. And speaking of like gateway, that 90s 2000s pivot where just like J horror just came in heavy, heavy.
Flood. It was a flood.
Yeah, like I just ate it up. I ate it up.
Yes, yes. Listen, I love when people show love to international horror because a lot of people, they're like, oh, subtitles this and subtitles that. And I'm like, I used to be that way. I used to be dub. I'm like, let me get the English dub or whatever. But now I'm like, I've opened my brain, I've expanded my mind, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, it's so I feel like I get so much more like creativity when I go, overseas and things like that. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it's because, just because I grew up in America or whatever, but I feel like just the creativity and just the stories and the different ways that people like to tell, their folklore and things like that, like
Mhm.
it's just amazing. Like, do you have any, like, if you could list like three international horror, recommendations. Do you have any that off the top of your head?
Ooh, okay, let's see. One of my favorites is Ju-on, The Grudge, very first one.
Mm,
That's one of my favorites. If we let's say we go to K horror, I love I think this is a classic. I think everybody's seen this one. Speaking of zombie movies, Train to Busan. Um
yes.
let's see. Another one. It's slipping my mind. Might have to come back to me because they're in my mind, but
Oh yeah.
trying
Well,
to
yeah. It's always up there. Then when someone
yeah.
asks me a question, I'm like, I don't know. I can't name my top five horror movies. I don't know. It's always in a brain fog. We got uh
Oh, I forgot even about like French Extremity. Like Finch Extreme. Oh my gosh. So probably the first, I probably dove in the deep end because I kept hearing about it, right? Was see, I'm blanking tonight. I'm blanking. Sorry, international
no,
horror.
no.
Um oh my goodness, what is the movie? What is the movie? You all probably say it before I do.
Shout out
Uh,
to High Tension. That's that's my
that's
favorite
it.
French.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. Oh,
That's it.
listen, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I love that one. What did you think about the ending? Because I know it was controversial for a lot of people.
Now listen, see, that's why I love that movie. That movie was like one of the first that I saw that was horrifying, but horrifying like on a almost like cosmic level because it pivoted at the end. Some
Yes,
people I guess don't like that pivot, but I love that actually that movie throughout the whole experience changes lanes every single time. That like, and I think that's what makes that movie work so well, like where it could have just been by the numbers, you know, girl, is having like terrifying visions of like something bad that happened to her. Some, the thing really didn't happen. It was a dream or is a lie, or and then like, reveal that it was the truth, that something bad did happen to her, and then like movie ends, right? But the movie continues and like it just kept going and going. And it just kind of, is one of those movies that if you've never seen it before, you have no clue where it's going to go. And I think that's a good thing.
that's a
That it just
beautiful thing.
yeah, that it just kept going and going, and that, like at the end was even just like something in movies that we sometimes in horror that we dabble in as far as like the spirituality or like, we have, tons of movies. It's like Catholic horror, right? You know what I mean? That we
Yeah.
like have is like our kind of reference points. But to get something like even like above that was like it just even still to this day it's just like okay, this is whoever was like responsible for kind of sticking to their guns with that final ending. I'm gonna give them props on that one. That was to me, it still actually gets me like woo, kind of gives me chills when I think about it.
The performance,
Mhm.
the performances in there were just phenomenal,
Mhm.
phenomenal. Paul, he says, "A Secret of the Nim is my favorite animated movie ever, especially as a Don Blue film and kind of my
Mhm.
first gateway horror." Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
Shout out.
it made like a bajillion dollars. We really don't know how much these things made because like you say with physical media, we bought VHS tapes.
Yes.
Right. So sometimes you never know if somebody had the original tape or a recording of the tape. Speaking of J horror, right? With the evil
Facts.
tape, Ringu. Ooh, shout out to Ringu. Shout out to Dark Water. See, now they're coming to me. Now they're coming. See, now they're
Yes,
coming.
yes. Classics, dropping the classics,
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, we got Germs with the fire question, coming through. How do you feel about USA adapting international horror films and making their own version?
Oh, okay, maybe if we go in the way back machine. America has not always had a good track record. Let's be clear, very clear. Like for example, I had originally seen the Japanese Godzilla only. I had no clue that there was like an American re-edited version to like insert, you know, the American perspective or whatever into the movie. So when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is abominable. This is abominable." Who said that we need to inject? But I was like, "Oh, this is also a product of its time, right?"
Yes.
Speaking of a product of its time, when we were talking about J horror, they said, "Oh, this J horror thing is." And then what do? Remake, remake, remake. Now, what obviously sucks you out of the film, pulls you out of the film is because now you're injecting a Western eye. I would say the only one that was kind of successful was The Ring,
Yeah.
but like the others had the world of the horror film. So like let's say we were talking about like Ju-on, right? When they redid The Grudge, like in America, right? You were like, "Oh, cool. Uh Buffy the Vampire Slayer in Japan, cool." But like it just feels so off because you lose something when you inject that Western kind of framing. Now, every now and again, they can get it right. So, like, when there was the American remake of I, am I allowed to Google? Am I allowed to click clack and
Yes, yes.
Google?
Listen. This is Evil Live, where
Okay.
The Google's it's multiple tabs open right now, because
Uh-huh.
yeah, we just having fun, we having fun with it,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah.
Um, it may come to me. Um, I think it originally was either out of Switzerland, Norway, I can't remember. The little girl who was the vampire, the little child who was the vampire and had the little child best friend.
Oh,
Golly.
let the right one in
Yeah,
or keep
let
the
the
right
right
one
one
in?
in.
Yeah, let the
Mhm.
right one in.
Both
Yeah.
both of those I think were pretty good. Um, but frequently something is lost, and I think it's because, we're talking about things that are also cultural, right? And society
Thanks.
specific, right? So, when you know, think you can just take let's say you take the Japanese person out and just put a white person in there, or you take, you take the, let's say they tried to do La Rona, right? And they took the they took they took the South American, Mesoamerican element out and just said, "Oh, we're gonna plop a white person in here and think, no, it doesn't fly. It does not fly. It does not work." That like we say, there's just some, the cultural and the societal that we lose, that we miss, because usually when they do this, they have the person who's not familiar with the culture who's like, what and how does this work, and why is this
Yes.
monster, and what creature is this, explain it to me. You know what I mean? So it doesn't work. It just
No,
don't
I
work.
agree.
Yeah.
Like I've been very vocal about, like, I saw Quarantine before I
Mm,
saw Wreck. And when I saw
mhm.
Wreck, I was just like, what the hell was I like? How come no one, introduced me to this before? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
it's and essentially they tried to do like a shot by shot remake, but
Mhm.
the seasoning wasn't seasoning, the
Yeah.
season this
Yeah.
in that pot. So
Yeah. And they did the same thing, like I say, with the J horror. They tried to get the best scares, right? Because they like, "Oh, these scares work. Let's keep those." But then, like, put, like I say, like, plop another face in there and think it's gonna work. It just doesn't.
nah, nah.
It just doesn't work.
Not at all, not at all. You gotta have that culture in there. You gotta have that representation. You gotta have that soul,
Mhm.
to what it means. I think that's why I love Yoko Anwar's, like, his work so much.
Mhm.
Because this man just, he gets it right. I didn't know that I would be like such a fan of like Indonesian horror, but it's just kicking ass. It's
Mhm.
kicking ass.
That
Um,
now that's cool to see more, you know what I mean? That it's always been there, but it's really neat that we're getting not only like Indonesian horror in, in movie format, but even like video games. Oh, we didn't even talk about video games. How have I not talked about
listen,
video games?
listen. We could talk about video games. Let's get it. What, like, do you have any memories of, like, like, favorite, horror games back in the day that stuck out to you?
Speaking of international, um like Fatal Frame, Silent Hill, like I am a big Silent Hill fan. Like I'm Silent Hill stan, okay? So like when Silent Hill 2 remake comes, where will I be?
On them sticks, on them sticks.
Yeah, yeah. So like Resident Evil, right? Like I mean we got it like real. Like I say, like if you were born in either the 80s or the 90s, you just, and it, especially like I say, there was like a cutoff like in the 90s. You had
Yeah.
to be born in a certain kind of bracket, right? But like we got it. We had some phenomenal games. Like I'm telling you, like
Oh
no
yeah.
cap.
Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, with the
Mhm.
doors slowly creaking open. It
Mhm.
was it was wild. And even when, like, like, the technology started to advance, and getting
Mhm.
games like, Alan Wake and Dead
Mhm.
Space and Alien
Mhm.
Isolation. It's just
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
oh man, we're going into it. We're getting into the thick of it. So
Yeah. But what's so interesting is because we also really kind of didn't know what we had until we got older. So like when when some of us are like diehards, like I love the older games because they obviously had to kind of max out the hardware as
yes.
much as they could from an artistic and a visual perspective, right? That sometimes we lose some of those things with newer games because they're like, "Oh, how good can we get the polygons on the or like how, we can put the people in 4K now." I'm like, "That's cool, but like what about your story? What about, what about your environment? What about, everything else, the sound design? What about your soundtrack?" I'm like, it's cool that we can see like Norman Reedus. You know what I mean? Like, right. But like, sometimes things get missed. You know what I mean? And like, shout out to PT. Like, PT's changed the game. game. PT
Oh,
changed the game. And then everybody was on PT slash the Silent Hills coattails for like
yeah.
for a while, right? So I mean we have like and I find, which is really cool now, I find that the success of video games has informed horror movies and kind of vice versa, that
Yes.
like people actually, whether we knew it or not, people that sometimes are working on these movies or TV shows or whatever were gamers too, right? And they were like, what's going on in video game land, right? And would pull, right, some of those things out,
Yes.
some of, whether it be like different like angles, that you would never think to do, like a video game would try to accomplish with a character or with framing or whatever, or how a scare was accomplished, like in this video game format, like how could we accomplish that same thing like on the big screen, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, I mean, we have so many games to kind of point to, and we have like, so I'm like, we have an explosion of indie games, you know what I mean, that beyond your AAA games, there's like people that are making their own horror these
Right.
days, that like like beyond movies, beyond TV shows, that like now people are like, oh, I'm going to create a horror experience, you know what I mean? And I think that is so cool, because all those little horror things matter, all of these different little horror, podcasts, horror movies, horror video games, like all of it like matters. And like shout out to everybody who's like putting in that work to feed the children, to give us what we want.
Yes, yes, and I love that you bring that up because it's like it's the game has definitely changed because we've always had like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, stuff like
Mhm.
that. The big names, but like I was the other day, I was like, because I was an Xbox guy, then I switched over to PlayStation, and now I'm like I'm
Mhm.
going to PC my next purchase because that's
Mhm.
where the independent horror is. Like that's like
Mhm.
I feel like PC is a lot of innovative, folks, and they don't necessarily have to have like the AAA money to, put their stuff on the platform. They could put it on Steam. You could have, a relatively bare bones budget, but as long as the scares, the story, or the sound is effective, people are going to check it
Mhm.
out. People are definitely
Yeah,
going to check it out, you
very much
know.
so.
So we
Very
got
much so.
the twins. They say love high tension. Yes, yes. French horror on another level. Ernesto Inside is one of my
Yes,
faves.
inside now.
Yes, yes. Inside going back. We going back. Yes. Dell on movies. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Thanks for stopping by. Showing some love. Showing some love. Uh Paul says I watched Secret of Nim as VHS. It was that rare to remember.
And
Wow, yes.
if you have your physical media, people, please hold on to it. We have never thrown away a VHS tape. So in our house, on multiple shelves, we still have, or actually, yeah, multiple shelves. We still have all of our VHS tapes. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, most
Mm-hmm.
definitely. That VHS collection. When you walk into
Mm-hmm.
somebody's house and they like you get, I feel like you get to know a little bit of them, by what they got on VHS, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even what they got on DVD. It's like, all right, I see how you present yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
what's your physical media section looking
Yeah.
like? Because this is really telling, of who you really are,
Mm-hmm. And it's,
What's
speaking of, like, we have that problem, like you said, now, where we're getting fantastic horror that's on a streaming platform that we have no like physical thing for. Like, for example, like one that is just so sad, like Mike Flanagan has put out so much amazing horror for Netflix, and we don't have it. We don't have it.
shout out to the bootleggers out there. Some of us got it. Shout out to the bootleggers.
Oh, okay. Shout out
Because
to
you got
y'all. Shout out to y'all.
you gotta, because it's the funny thing because like I'll watch something like international horror or
Hmm.
something on Netflix and I'll be like, damn, I love this. I need this on my shelf. And you want to support the artists and the art and all that, but
Yeah.
then they're like, yeah, this is the licenses like the director of and the creator of Incantation. You know, it was a
Mhm.
Netflix exclusive.
Mhm. Mhm.
I found this man on Twitter, and I was like, "When are we gonna get a Blu-ray release?" And he's like, "Netflix not putting it out on physical media." You know, so
Yeah.
I had to go to the depths of the internet and find somebody who had it, and you know, I'm like,
Mhm.
gotta get it on my shelf. You know, I don't
Yeah.
want to bootleg, but it is what it is. You gotta, I need that on
Yeah,
my
like,
shelf.
we still do not have in the US, and I think out only like, only to my knowledge in Japan, can you find Godzilla -1.
Yes.
I'm just like, "We need this movie." But, like and I'm wondering now that, like we say, now that Netflix is involved, ugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, give us I need that in black and white. I need a
Mhm.
still book, you know, extra because that was a theatrical experience for that ass, you
Yeah,
know.
yes.
You know, it was definitely up there, you know.
Mhm.
Dell says sometimes the American remake is a watered down PG-13 version. That's even worse.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. And like we also not that like everything was perfect in the 90s. We
yeah.
also had like horror that they were just like, "Oh, that'll be too much. Let's water it down." So like
Yes.
Spawn, so we have two versions of Spawn in the 90s, right? We have the HBO Spawn, that's like the way Spawn is supposed to be seen. And then we had I mean, shout out to him. He did as the best that he could, right? We have it's fun, the PG-13, right? But then,
Yeah.
like, we also have, speaking of kicking open the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we have Blade, right, which is rated R, and which is why it's still in development hell now, in my opinion, because like it's supposed to be R rated, just like Deadpool and just like some of these other ones, right? And I think I've read some comment on one of the interviews that he wanted to be some big, kind of grand story like Black Panther or whatever. And I'm like, that's not Blade.
It's not.
I'm like, that's not Blade.
I mean,
So
it's yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a possible. I mean, I get like people are on Marvel and stuff like that. They want to push out, you know, a certain content or whatever, and they see the money that Black Panther and them have made. But I'm like, Blade is raw, and Blade is like a blending of, you know, a lot of different cultures, you know,
mhm,
together, and it's
mhm,
just like it's you like you can do so much with Blade, but don't like, you know, don't go against like the essence of the character, you know,
mhm.
which is just raw, you know. Don't go against the essence, you know. We got a double feature. They say there's some great foreign horror. Bobby says Resident Evil 2 is that work. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. That double disc, Claire and
Claire and
Leon.
Leon. Yes, 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 yes. Like now that's something I wish in the newer Resident Evil games that like, I miss like our larger cast of characters, right? And like it's sad, but like all of the stories that we could have gotten or could have been getting with like the women, they
Yes,
get they still I'm sorry, they get short shrift. I'm sorry, they get short shrift, like where we could see more of them or new women characters, right? But
yes.
like I'm a stand until forever. Resident Evil Village, Lady Dimitrescu, whoo! Now that y'all went off with her, okay? Like had the internet, had everybody like in a chokehold, in a grip, okay? Like
Yeah,
that
it
was
was
mhm.
it was wild. It was wild. Like just the fan base that she accumulated in such a short time.
Mhm. Shout out to Maggie. Y'all know her. She's great. She's a lovely, like lovely, zany, kooky person. She's great. And you can only kind of be that way and be that camp, right? If you know the character that you're doing, if you know that like this is a literally a larger than life 9'6" vampire lady. I mean, come
Yes.
on now. Come on now. And that game, speaking of like one of the newer Resident Evil games, I was intrigued because I was like, oh, this is like the greatest hits of like horror. We've got werewolves, werewolves, we've got vampires. I mean, like, and it was like kind of pivoting beyond, just out and out zombies, you know what I mean? It was something new, a new way to see the virus, you know what I mean, kind of take over this place. And like, picking up that thread from Resident Evil 7, right? We got brand new monster types, right? Which shout out to the pivot that's, 7, laid the groundwork for that we have now. I love when a series kind of trusts the audience and does something new.
Listen, when I popped on 7 and I saw, like, as a horror fan, you see the
Mm-hmm.
callbacks and the little nods, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. That's 1 nod, 2 nods, 3 nods, 4 nod." I'm like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
shit. Y'all, chef's kiss." And like you said, like, I feel like they went back into, like, the 7, they went back into, like, 80s and stuff like that, like, certain nods to certain classic, horror films out there. But then with 8, it was just like very fairy tale-ish and very like, oh, this is the classic, like the
Mm-hmm.
werewolves, the vampires and stuff like that. So whoever's idea that was to, switch it up, was top notch, top notch. Shout out to
Yeah.
y'all. Shout out to y'all.
And to make the horror just like some of our greatest horror movies, right? Like that was like a send up to like Texas Chainsaw. Like that was a send up to like, and I loved it. It just made the horror smaller, more like intimate, right? And it was like, okay, well, what if like we had this virus and it was
Yes.
just these people like out in the middle of nowhere, not New York, not California, like we getting all the movies. Like, no, like what if we had like in the rural deep south, right? Like Louisiana, all of a sudden we've got, all the horror running around out here. And I'm just like, that was brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And I love that last comment about tech over story. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm like, it's true. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah,
It's
get it
true.
together. Should give it, don't, because I know, like, I feel like everybody knows horror is the money maker. You spend a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
money, you get a
Mm-hmm.
massive return. But I'm like, show give us some thought, give us some
Yeah.
love into this, because even something that you may view as mindless is not necessarily mindless. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people see zombies and they're like, oh, just throw zombies, creatures on the screen, and that's all we got to do. And it's like, nah, we've seen some magic, like you mentioned before, Train to Busan,
Mm-hmm.
the what's the other one, The Sadness, which was
Mm-hmm.
crazy, so
Like
it's a lot of.
there's another, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, what were we gonna say?
There was another series, speaking of Netflix, I'm sorry, the company that should not be named. Uh that was another Netflix Korean series. All of Us Are Dead and in Kingdom. I loved Kingdom because it took the zombies, like a lot of our zombie movies we get in these modern settings, right?
Yes.
So to actually take it and, set it, hundreds of years ago, right? In a completely,
Yes.
where people don't have, flamethrowers and they don't have like missiles and tanks to kill the zombies. So like now you have the threat that okay, now the zombie threat is spreading very slowly, right? Or spreading a little bit quicker, but now people don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know what this thing is. They can't explain it. They think, okay, is this, I don't know, the gates of hell opening up? Is this somebody didn't do some spiritual practice right? Like what's happening? And all you have to fight them off is not very much, right? So I would love actually if we did more horror movies and we like go back to see how people would like thwart the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
mean,
sometimes
it's
all you can do is run.
listen, sometimes that's all you gotta do. Cause shit, if a zombie apocalypse popped off right now, one of them getting hit with this ring light, somebody getting hit with with choking somebody
Mhm.
out with a HDMI cable. You gotta work with what you got. You gotta work with what you got. You know.
Speaking of zombies, do you this isn't an either or. You can like both. Whether you like the slow shuffling zombies or the fast zombies, or you like both.
You know what? I am a slow shuffling zombie person because I feel
Mm.
like my cardio has to be at a certain level with fast zombies, but I know that
Mhm.
I can run errands because in the zombie apocalypse, you want to be able to run errands. You want to be able to go to, Best Buy, or you want to be able to go to 7-Eleven and, do
Mhm.
what you got to do, and I feel like I can do what I got to do with slow zombies as long as, I'm paying attention. I got my wits about me,
Mhm.
I think I'm going to be cool. How about you?
It's like Shaun of the Dead. Like he was, in the store shopping. He was do going to his car. Everything chaos all around. He could. It's not. You wouldn't even notice. You know. So
Yes.
I I feel like this. I like slow shuffling because obviously you're talking about like the dead and reanimating them and whatever, whatever. Now, my caveat could be if you did fast, I wish kind of like we saw like in The Walking Dead, they obviously are, they're deteriorating. So I wish that like maybe there's like a window where they can still kind of run or be
Yes.
fast, but then after that, that window is closed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like, there should be like a little, like a little asterisk on like them being quick.
Listen. I think and it's funny because everybody gives me like a different answer or whatever. So I feel like it gives me
Mhm.
a little sliver of like, people's personality when they're like, fast or slow zombies, or even the zombies that we have in World War Z, where it's just
Mhm.
like I wouldn't even describe them as fast. I would just, because it's something ant-like about them, that's
Yeah.
just like crazy.
Yeah, like that was giving like Last of Us, speaking of video games, that was giving us like Last of Us Part 2, like the Rat King melded together, you know, mold, squishy zombie. Like, I think actually that was probably not only one of the scariest parts of that game. I've actually talked about my feelings and uh about Last of Us Part 2. Y'all can go look that up if you want to. I have problems. I have problems with the Last of Us series, okay? I don't like how they kill black people. I don't like it. I don't like it. Y'all can look that up. Y'all can look it up. Y'all can look it up. But yeah, like I think that was really good how obviously they went just somewhere dark, dank, quiet and then just molded together, right? Like became,
Mhm.
obviously the hive mind, you know what I mean? Like that was really good. And I was just like, "Oh no, you're not going down there in the dark, are you? By yourself, are you?" I'm like, "Oh, the game says I have to go, so let's go."
Mm-mm. See that I'm glad that you brought up The Last of Us because which I'm going to check out your article. What you got to say about
Mhm.
black people in that universe. But I think when Resident Evil 5 first came out, like I
Mhm.
co-opted with my brother, and I enjoyed it. And I think it was because I was playing it with my brother, but I booted it up recently, and I'm just like, what the hell is this crap? And then I'm like, what do you have thoughts on RE5? And because they keep remaking them. So I'm like, of
Mhm.
course they're going to remake this. And what should they like they cannot remake what they did. Like they gotta go with a whole they gotta come from a whole new different angle, if they're gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Resident Evil 5 is definitely, like how a lot like if a series goes on long enough, eventually there'll be quote unquote a black sheep. And like the fact
Yeah.
this one literally had black people in it and it was in Africa. Like I feel like that one could have been something different or unique, just like how we have Resident Evil 7 now, Resident
Yes.
Evil 8 now, that
Yes.
kind of thought deeper about the setting and the place, right? Like,
Yes.
I love that with the Resident Evil 4 remake, they said, okay, beyond just making them, you know, um, just kind of walking, talking Spanish, zombies, right? We're gonna add layers, you know what I mean? We're going to just do a lot more in the writing department. And I think it would be really interesting if one, we get a different take on them and, we do a lot more with Sheva. Like, she's
Yes.
like the only black protagonist we've like ever had in the Resident Evil series. And that's a problem. Like that, we don't have more people of color protagonists across the board with how broad and how wide we're talking about that these viruses are. But
Yes.
pivoting back to Resident Evil 5, the fact that we found out, okay, now we have this flower, right, that originated in Africa, that unlike the virus, people could take this flower and gain these powers and this, that, and the other, right, from it, and could become something completely new, like in the Resident Evil canon. So, like, I was really intrigued when they referenced back to it in Resident Evil 8, right? That the scientist Mother Miranda character, right, was pulling, from all of these different types of lore, right, or these different types of, scientific experiments
Yes.
around the world. So I'm like, if they do Resident Evil 5 again, they have got to get it right. Got to get it right. Got to
Get it
get
right.
it right.
Get
Or
it
else,
right.
or else we'll be just as disgruntled as
Even
before.
more. Even
Mhm.
more. I feel like, the videos are gonna start rolling out. They hopefully, but hopefully they learn, hopefully they learn, because if Shiva's not the main kid, because I wouldn't mind playing just to Shiva the whole game, to be honest. Like I wouldn't mind
Mhm.
playing, as her as the whole game. But we
Now that would be cool.
yeah, I there's something about playing as even as a guy, like just playing as women in these games, because
Mhm.
you're kicking, like, because they design women a certain way in these games or whatever, and you're just kicking ass and just mowing through all these zombies and all this. I'm like, yo, this is crazy, versus
Mhm.
the standard archetype of just the white man and the muscles, and gotta
Mhm.
get this done and all this stuff. And it's like, switch it up, give us some Spanish protagonists, give us some
Mhm.
Asian protagonists, just switch it up, people,
Yeah.
switch it up. um yes, we got Dell on movies, Shaun of the Dead is hilarious. Shaun of the Dead is hilarious. Jody, hey, you ready for the Brandy movie? Listen, the Brandy,
Uh-oh.
I'm excited. Did you see
Oh.
the trailer?
Yes, I did.
You have
I ha-
thoughts?
I s- I have mixed feelings.
Okay, okay.
I have mixed feelings cuz
It's the same case.
same. Oh, okay. Okay. Like when I found out, I was like, okay, Brandy, but I was like, oh, okay, let me see. White partner. Not necessarily a red flag, but then like when I looked, I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. We have a lot of white people in the writers room. I'm just like, this listen. We've had some movies, where that goes left field, you know what I mean? Like, with like, you can't just say, I'm gonna do a horror movie and I'm just gonna throw a person of color in here and like, hope for the best. You know what I mean? like there are things that socially and culturally you can get so wrong. You get so wrong. Like there are things that'll just feel off, that won't feel genuine, that won't feel authentic.
Yeah.
So there were moments in that trailer that I was like, no, Brand. Well, sometimes we insert character here, right? They were like, no, Brandy wouldn't do that. Brandy wouldn't say that. Now I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna give it a chance because we love Brandy. We love Brandy. We stand Brandy over here. But I'm a try. If it's bad, you will get an excoriating critique from me because how dare you? You don't use the cultural cachet that Brandy has, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Get people in the theater because they're like, Brandy, and make a so middling movie. You just don't do it. But it's A24, so I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. It's not Blumhouse, so
Oh, oh,
we gonna let
uh-oh,
it we gonna
uh-oh,
let it rock. We gonna
uh-oh, uh-oh.
we gonna let it rock. Shout out to Blumhouse out there.
Mhm.
Yeah. With the imagination over there, doing a thing. Paul says, I prefer plant-based zombies like the Flood from Halo. Those guys look
Mm.
disgusting with their pimple skins.
Come on,
Yes.
plant based. Sorry, that sounds so 2024. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be funny if there was like a show and it's like, oh, there's
Mhm.
zombies here, but and then someone's or like even a commercial where
Mhm.
they are promoting, a product and the zombies are breaking the door down and they're like, oh, don't eat me. And they're like, "Ah, we're plant-based, and it's just
Yes.
like
Yes.
plant-based zombies. That's hilarious. Dell says fast zombies in the movie, slow zombies if I was living it. Yes, yes,
I just realized I don't have my laptop plugged in. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. Is that
No, no,
okay?
no, no problem, no problem. Get
Sorry,
get get
everybody.
get yourself straight. Get yourself straight. We got Dell on movie says I'm with Danny on the Brandy flick. The trailer is giving wannabe Get Out. Yeah, it's a lot of people who have their reservations. But we gonna see what they do in the final
All
play.
right.
In the final play. Um,
So sorry, everybody.
No problem. No problem. We got Paul. I haven't played Resident Evil games, but what you guys said about plant-based zombies, I will play those games in some time. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Not all of them are great, but the remakes that they're coming out with are exceptional, very exceptional.
Mhm. Mhm.
Double features as we have confidence in A24. Yes, yes. Paul, oh my, plant-based zombies and ads. And yes, Elisa, shots fired, shots fired. It is what it is. It is what it is. But as a fellow gamer yourself,
Mhm.
like I love horror games. I love playing them. But sometimes, especially because with the music, and I love playing horror games with the headphones on, so the music can get a little too
Mhm.
intense, and I'm just like I'm sweating, and like I remember I was playing Alien Isolation, and I
Mhm.
was like, it was like the fourth month of me playing that damn game, and I'm like, I gotta beat this damn game. So I
Mhm.
poured some alcohol that I had in the fridge, and it was maybe
Uh-huh.
like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I just started drinking, and I'm like, I'm gonna get through this damn game. And then I had to turn the sound down because like the music was just like too intense. And I found I had a similar experience with Resident Evil 2 with the Mr. X character. And I'm like,
Oh, listen.
sometimes I cannot deal. So I'm like, how do
Mm-mm.
you, as a
Mm-mm.
fellow gamer, how do you deal with those tense moments in these games?
Like you, I'm human. When that music cue cuts on, you're like, "Oh, I'm in danger. I'm in danger. I'm in danger. I may die. I may die." You know that classic screen, "You have died." I mean, listen, like, I think that's good, and that, like, I feel like where movies obviously will, like, keep going, right? The movie will
Yeah,
keep going, but a video game, either you leave that game and cut it off, or you keep going. You just have to press on. You just have to press on.
listen, listen.
Like,
Sometimes I gotta cut the lights on. I gotta cut the lights
mhm,
on.
and
You
especially now with some games, like you mentioned Alien Isolation, that, like, that microphone feature, that we have some microphone feature games now that, like, the creature or the monster or whatever can hear you breathe or talk or whatever. Mm-mm, mm-mm, no.
I'm like, he gotta be within earshot the whole game, the whole
Yeah,
time,
mhm,
like the whole
mhm.
time. I don't get a breather, I don't get a safe room,
No, no,
the whole
no.
time, you know.
That, like,
So
that I'm with you, like, that Mr. X, where Mr. X will just you hear those heavy footsteps and you're like, "Oh, oh, like, I better get out of here." And, like, don't let there be zombies you didn't take care of that are still shambling around and Mr. X in the same room. You can just yeah.
I'm just like, this is unfair. This is unfair.
Yeah.
At that point, I just walk into it. I'm like, you know what? Y'all got me. Let me just walk into the chaos. I already know
Mhm.
y'all got me.
Or some
Yeah,
windows you didn't board up and you just like, "You made a mistake. You made a mistake." You
listen,
trying
I'm
to You trying to keep on, hold on that inventory. You should have used that.
Listen, I am bad with that. I am
Mhm.
notorious for holding on to inventory, and then at
Mhm.
the end of the game, I'm like, damn, I could have been, I could have used this because I'm always thinking, I'm like, oh, I gotta save this, I gotta save that. Then there's a cutscene, and all my inventory just gets stripped, because the character
Mhm.
gets kidnapped or some shit, and I'm like, damn, you know. Like I'm a very like defensive I'm a very defensive player. Like it's
Mhm.
funny. Like when I co-op with my brother, he's very offensive. He's like Rambo jumping out, But I'm just like, I gotta I gotta hide in the corner. I gotta play it safe,
Yeah.
which extends my playing time. A game that should take me like 8 hours takes me 50 hours. Which is
Yeah, the
ridiculous.
time it takes is the time it takes for you, okay? Mhm.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but, like, shout out to speaking of, like, video games and movies colliding, right? We've had, like, so many of these co-op games, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the co-op game just came out. Then before that, we had Texas Chainsaw, and then before that, we had Friday the 13th, like, the way us in the horror community, right, are like, "This will make a good game. You better make a game out of this. You better game, 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 game." And they're just like, "Okay, we'll make a game," you know?
Listen,
They hear
listen
us
to us.
complaining over here.
Yeah, listen to us. They did their thing with The Walking Dead, in
Mhm,
the Telltale series that they had, and
mhm, mhm,
like I know they came out with the Evil Dead the game, which I bought it, but I felt like you need to have a narrative Evil Dead game and you're gonna make a killing.
mm,
Because if you have a narrative Evil Dead game, great story, great effects, you're gonna make a killing, great sound, you're gonna make a killing, you know.
mhm. Yeah,
So,
I'm with you
they
on that one. I forgot
yes.
that I'm sorry, I forgot they even made a game of it. I am so sorry. Because I remember, like, people were like, "Yeah, Evil Dead," and then it was just like, poof, it was just like, it kind of came and, like, went. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I know
Like,
it was $60. I paid, I was normally I wait until, these sales, it was $60. I'm like, "Damn," it's
Until Dawn. Listen. Swoosh. Like they went off with Until Dawn, okay? And the fact every game since with the choose your own adventure goosebumps style thing has been
yes,
riding Until Dawn's coattails ever since. And like
I
has
agree.
and has not hit that same, like, they set the bar high, right? And I feel like everything since then, like The Quarry was good, but I feel like Until Dawn was just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I bought the Corey on a sale. I haven't booted it up yet. I haven't played it. Like I've got like a backlog of games I've got to play, but Until Dawn was that work. I've played through it a couple times. Like everybody dies, to be honest, in my playthroughs. I'm like, I'm like, everybody gotta go. Everybody gotta go. You know.
Mhm. Everybody gotta say like, "Bye, everybody. Peace out." Sorry, I killed y'all. I went the wrong way.
Listen.
I
It
made the
is what
wrong
it is.
choice.
It is what it like. Have you played Heavy Rain? Heavy Rain was another good one. You know.
Mhm. That was another good one. That was another
Yes.
good one.
Yes. Paul says, I need to buy a nice headphone for playing horror games like Alien, Isolation, and RA2 Remake. Yes. The headphones make all the
Mhm.
difference. All the
Mhm.
difference.
Mhm.
Yes, Bobby says the Evil Dead game is best played with friends. It's fun. Okay, okay. Gotta
Okay.
boot it
Okay.
up. Get a group going. Paul says, I remember when I watched Until Dawn, they got a good creature depiction. Yes, they
Yes.
did.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
was shocked. I was like, oh, we're this is that type of story. It was like, oh
Yes. Like, speaking of us just, like, high tech didn't we just talk about it? We just talked about it, that,
yes,
like, a game that pivoted, that we thought, "Oh, it's just this thing." I'm like, "Oh, no, it's see?" Like, it was about, like, the midway point, we're like, "Oh, the game's over? That was short." And we're like, "Oh, no, buckle in, sweetie, now the experience begins. That was just a tutorial." We were like, "Oh, very nice, very nice."
oh yeah, oh yes. And Bobby says, how y'all feel about the Until Dawn movie they're making? Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, hesitant. I'll just say hesitant. I'm hesitant because sometimes you can't capture what the game did in the same kind of effective way. You know what I mean?
I
Like
agree.
we may potentially not get enough of some characters, and it could just be a retread. Like if you've played the game, you may not get the same, you know what I mean? You feel like, "Oh, and then this scene. Oh, and then this scene. Oh, and then oh, they did that scene." But like that can be fun, but you may not be scared. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
So,
I agree because I think that there are, you know, some adaptions, you know, of course we all know Resident Evil, which for whatever reason they cannot get it right for decades.
mm.
Decades. Y'all cannot get it right. And I'm done. I'm done, you know, but I know they are talking about doing BioShock, you know, which isn't
Oh
technically
yeah.
horror, but I still would put it in that arena, you know, because of the mood and things like that, and the decisions that you make in the game. I'm like the some of the turns and the twists and the pivots in there. I don't know how it's going to translate on screen.
To me, BioShock should get the Fallout treatment. How I mean, there's just so much story that I think that was Bobby who asked the question about Until Dawn.
Yes, yes,
That I think if they did Until Dawn, I think it would be a very good like mini series or something like that. Because I mean, you know, some of these things just need more time to breathe. And BioShock is full of so much lore and story and characters and so many emotional, you know, beats and moments that like I think a movie just condenses too much. You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I agree. I think it'd be dope. Like now that you talk about like you know spreading some things out, like I think a Dead Space miniseries would be dope. Like I know
Mhm.
they've done like the animated stuff, but I think like if Netflix or HBO, because I know they're going to screw it up if we ask for like multiple seasons, but if we just get like a mini series, you know, where it's like you know 8 episodes, 10 episodes, I think it could be something special. You know.
Yeah, like they can work. I mean, Fallout is like a good example and like people who know that lore heavy. Like they've got that, you know, that lore dictionary, I mean, right up here, you know what I mean? From characters to environment to story to
Yes.
world building, like all of that and knowing it like heavy. So like, you know, even though it pivoted, obviously there was the Silent Hill movie, you know. We're obviously
Yes.
getting like a double dose of Silent Hill 2. I don't know why. I truly don't know why they're doing a Silent Hill 2 game and a Silent Hill 2 movie. I hmm.
One of these things is probably not going to be good, but either way, I'm excited. Like from what I've seen of Silent Hill 2, the game, I'm excited. You know,
Yes, I am. I am. I
I'm
am.
excited.
And I'm paying those quote unquote haters no mind. Like these are also people when you read these comments, you're like, "Oh, so you've never played this. You don't even know what this game is about. You have like no clue who these people are. You don't know the lore, you don't know their characters.
Yeah.
You don't even know like the emotional like story beats. You don't know the original game developers. You don't know the storyboard artists. You don't like know like I'm sorry, you don't know anything and you're just talking. Just talking because you have a phone, you have keys, you can click clack, so you have to comment.
Listen,
Mm-mm,
listen.
mm-mm.
These sometimes you just gotta ignore the naysayers, you know, because
Mhm.
they everybody came into the room at different times. You know, not everybody came to the party at the same time. You know, Paul says, "I hope Until Dawn don't mess up the creature depiction."
Oh,
Yes, yes,
that's key.
yes,
That's
yes,
key. Now, mhm, mhm, Fallout, yes indeed. Yes
yes,
indeed. Shall I
yes.
proceed? Mhm.
See, I haven't even checked out Fallout yet, but I've heard so many good things, so many good things. So it's on my list. it's definitely on my list of shows to check out this year. Especially with the horror elements. Oh wow, so it's emotional as well.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued now. I'm intrigued. You know. Now my next question for you would be do you have a favorite horror subgenre, or something that just sticks out to you?
I don't I kinda hate these, like, one answer questions because like, I love it all.
Yeah.
I love it all. Like, I know some
Yeah.
people like, one world, one character, one thing is kind of their jam, but, like, the way I just love it all, like, truly, truly.
There's nothing wrong with loving it all, especially because we are human. We're going to
Mhm,
want to, experience the frights from, all over, so
mhm.
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong
I
with that.
The only one I can't do, I'm sorry, I can take pretty much anything you throw at me in a horror movie, but I can't do anything with spiders. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Like
So you didn't see
arachnophobia.
Infested.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I saw that poster. I said, "Nope, I can't watch this. I can't. I cannot. I cannot do spiders." Like the arachnophobia is like the one thing. Like you could I don't know, Jason could be running after me with a machete. I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. You know, Texas Chainsaw coming after me with a chainsaw. I'm like, not bad. Spider, mm-mm, mm-mm. I'd fold. I would fold. I would fold. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was watching something. It was I think it was like Love, Death, and Robots or something. It was like that Netflix.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get into that. It's in my Netflix queue.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, but there is an episode where I was just like,
Oh
now
no.
this story is truly terrifying, and
Oh
it
no.
involves arachnids. So,
Oh no. See,
yeah.
no,
But
no.
it's just one out of all the stories that they have.
Okay.
It's just one,
Okay. Okay.
but
But yeah, like Arachnophobia came out the year I was born in 1990.
yes.
Uh, mm-mm. I don't know. Give me snakes. Give me cocaine bear. I mean, you know what I mean? Give me sharks. I'm there. I'm locked in. But something for me, spiders is that one thing for me. I just mm-mm. I can't do it. That's my one thing. That's my kryptonite. Everything else, I'm like, yes, blood, gore, intestines, woo. You know what I mean? Spiders, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I can't hold one. I can't touch them. Can't look at them. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I don't know what it is that creeps us out, like, as humans about, like, spiders.
Mm-mm.
Like, I get snakes, but I don't know what it is about, spiders that just sends people, like, we're literally, like, how many times larger than this little this little thing, but we
Yeah.
catch one, we like, you know?
Yeah. And even snakes, like I can hold snakes, reptiles, no problem. And even spiders' cousins, even though they're arachnids too, like scorpions, don't kind of trigger that same response.
Yeah.
But I think it's like you say, speaking of like horror, right? It's something about the way they're designed, the way they move in like a fashion that like other things in the animal kingdom don't. I don't know. I don't know. That whew, God went off when he created that one, okay?
Paul says, "Not gonna lie, Arachnophobia 1990 movie did cure my fears of spiders by their faces." Wow.
What? No.
Yeah, I'm well,
Faces. I mm-mm. I'm
that was
sorry.
like reverse, reverse phobia, therapy,
Yes. That made it worse because I know what you're talking about. That camera was zoomed in. I don't mm-mm. No, 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 I'm sorry. Sorry. And I got a warning that like, okay, infested if you don't like and I was like, okay, see? That's one that I'm sorry, I can't watch. Won't watch. Mm-mm.
Yeah, gotta listen. Sometimes you just gotta know what your brand is. You gotta know
Yeah.
what your brand of fright is. So when
Yeah.
the new arachnophobia movie come out, all right, I'm nowhere near the theater. I already know people gonna be coming out with the merchandise. Throwing
Mhm.
fake spiders at people in the theater and all that. I'm like,
And for me, the more realistic they are, the worse they are. The ones that are like, that you know what I mean, that are kind of uncanny or that don't look as realistic,
yeah,
fine. But the more realistic, sorry. Sorry, can't do it. Can't do it.
can't do it.
So
And I,
everybody in the horror community, now you know. Now you
but
know.
I think it's a testament to to storytelling as well. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these things are like natural creatures like snakes, bears, sharks, spiders, what may have you, mosquitoes. And depending on the angle that the director or the writer is taking, like it can make something natural, that terrifying. Like I have a childhood fear, which I'm still afraid to this day, of tornadoes. Like I've never been in a tornado, but
Oh.
I wanted to be like a meteorologist when I was a kid, and I'm
Mhm.
just tornadoes fascinated me, but they scared the crap out of me. But I would watch these movies, and I'm like, what makes this so scary versus me watching an actual tornado on the news and stuff like that? And I'm like, because in the movies, these tornadoes be following your ass around, and I'm like, I'm like
Yeah.
in real life, if you get hit, like, it's because that's just the way that it went. But in these movies, they will chase your ass down. And it's
Yeah, like,
just
they make them, like, sentient, you know what I mean, in the movies? So, like, speaking of, like, my gateway tornado scene, I think this was probably everybody's. The Wicked Witch of the West did not scare me whatsoever. She was cool. I was like, "Ooh, bring her back. She's cool."
yes.
But the tornado sequence in the beginning of that movie was so horrific and well done. That was phenomenal.
Yes. Yes.
So, like, that was, like, my one that made me go like, "Ooh, tornado? Hmm." Yeah, so
Yeah.
even now, like, I have, like, different YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to that either talk about, like, different historical ones or so on and so on and so on. Like, I'm like you, I'm fascinated by them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes like I'll like I have a monitor next to me while I'm working or whatever. So sometimes I'll just put on like the classics, like, oh, this tornado that happened in this year or whatever, and footage and all that stuff. And
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
like, this is very, like, I don't like, for whatever reason, it's common, and the storm chasers, like, I would love to join a storm chasing team one day on an adventure, just to
Yeah, and
see.
actually, like, see one. I've never actually, like, seen one for real, but I know people who, like, see them all the time. They're just like, "Oh, there's a tornado," and they're just like, "Mm, there it goes. There it goes." Like clockwork, people who live out in the Midwest, but, like, we're having something similar, speaking of tornadoes, if you remember the 2011 outbreak where, like, there was tornadoes, like, all over the country, like, in
Yes.
places tornadoes had never shown up before. I don't know if y'all remember that, but 2011, there was even a really great National Geographic special that was, like, tornadoes all over the country, and it was, like, footage from, like, all over, and it was, like, a timeline sequence of, you know where they hit and where they went and everything else, like, that was, like, really interesting. And this year has been a similar year. Not that they've been popping up everywhere, but they've been so much more frequent. Shout out to climate change, right? Speaking
I
of
think it
horror,
was
the horror we're living in right now.
Yeah, I think I got an alert. It was like 3 in Pittsburgh last night or something crazy. I was like,
Mhm.
"What the hell?"
Yeah.
It's getting a little spooky outside, outside,
Mhm.
you know. Now my next question for you would be, do you have a horror film that you wish you could have been on the set for?
Ooh. Oh man, there's a couple of those. Uh I think I would have loved, obviously it's no longer in existence, right? Speaking of like movies that are, I love sometimes that are history horror movies. Y'all know I'm a Candyman fan, okay? But I would have loved to actually have seen the Cabrini Green like high-rise towers, and to have seen Chicago pre-gentrification, right? Or before it really got into full swing. Like it would have been really fascinating to me, I think, to see the ripple effect of history in that way, which is why there's just so many kind of added layers of like horror to that movie, because you're like, oh, this is like a real place and a real time and like real people. You know what I mean? That's one movie. I think another movie that I'd love to be on the set for. Let's see.
It's a good choice.
What are some other ones that I'd have loved to be on the set for? Some movies to see how they did it. So like I would have loved to have been on the set of Alien from 1979, just to see how they did so many of the things they did. And I'm like, where are the wires? Where was the camera? You know what I mean? Like there's some movies like that where I'm just like, how did you do this? How did y'all
Yes.
do this? I think, and when you brought up prosthetics and animatronics and robots and miniatures and all this, Terminator's another one. Like there's so many, like pretty much any movie for me that like had prosthetics, makeups, I would have just loved to like just sit in the makeup chair and just watch. Like, how did you turn Robert England, regular looking guy, to Freddy Krueger? How did you do that? You know what I mean?
On a
Like,
daily basis.
multiple movies, multiple reshoots, and everything else. And actually, if you pay attention, his makeup did change. His makeup was far scarier in the original Nightmare on Elm Street versus the other movies that came after. Like his makeup was real, like real, scary in the first one. But like, especially like, I'm with you. That's something I never even thought about what movie I would just like to be a fly on the wall and just watch. That's a very good question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do you have a horror film you wish you could see again for the first time? Like something that stands out?
Uh, like pretty much everyone. What's one that I would, oh man, like pretty much everything we've talked about. Like if I could just time capsule, watch it over again. It's like all of those, like you say, all of those tent poles, all of those like classics. You know what I mean? Like
Yes,
just
yes.
seeing, I don't know, just seeing them again with fresh eyes, because now we know what's gonna happen. We know the twist, we know the monster, we know the thing that's gonna happen or whatever. But there's too many to list. Too many to list as far as like one that I would, get in the time machine, punch up the coordinates, you know what I mean? And just go back, and some, especially because we were too young, that we could not go in the theater to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we needed a parent and or a guardian or someone of the age of, what was it? What was it back then? Was it 16 or
Yep.
18? I can't remember.
Is it 16 for what, PG? No, it was 17.
It was
17.
17. Okay.
Yeah.
Over the age of 17, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also some that you're right that like I wish, speaking of like some that we were too young to see, right? Like we were obviously were too young to see Alien originally as it came out
Yes.
back then. The Exorcist when it came out back then, because now we're used to all of these things, right? And I think that's something else we kind of take for granted, that we've had just all this like horror, and we kind of feel like sometimes like, oh, that's been done, oh, they already did that, or we've already seen that angle. You know what I mean? So to see some of these things with like fresh eyes, you're right, that would really be something. It would give us like, I don't know, like if we had a, like, I don't know, a neuralizer, boom, memory wiped, get in the time capsule, watch the movie, and then whoop, go to the go to the present. You know what I mean?
And then with the loaded with all the experiences that you have now, because some like
Hmm.
you're going to watch and pick up. Like I picked up on certain things in Candyman as a kid that differently
Mm.
than I did as an adult. Like as an adult, I'm picking up on like, oh shit, fucking gentrification and all this stuff, but as a kid I wasn't thinking about that shit, so
Yeah,
it
you were
was.
just like, "Oh, person creepy, scary man with the hook. Oops."
Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
know. So it's it's just interesting to see, to hear what people's choices, are. Now my next question for you would be, if does horror do anything for your mental health, if anything at all,
Horror movies have done for me, like, oh man, they're so comforting. I know this probably, for people who don't watch horror movies that often. I had a thread that I made on Twitter once because someone was asking, I think it was the Pop Culture Detective on YouTube. He was asking, "Hey, what are some like recommendations for like books that I should check out to kind of help inform my pop culture lens and everything else?"
yeah.
And I brought up wow, not me just dropping it all of a sudden. Uh Dr. Robin Means Coleman's book. Um Woo, she is gonna kill me. I am so sorry,
Yeah,
Dr. Coleman. It is 8:31 at night. I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
not at all. We still rocking.
Horror noir, blacks in American horror films, that was also made into a documentary format on Shutter.
Yes.
Um, that these movies also helped solidify for me, or that what we experience, right, like in real life, also is informing these horror movies and vice versa, right? Like you can literally, the comment I think I made was something like this: like you can track the progress of uh various phases of history, whether it be gender politics, racial politics, sexual politics, government or anti-government, sentiment. Like you can literally track those things. Like I think in horror movies, probably better than like anywhere else,
Yes.
where your kind of common cinema fare, it took, eons to see black people like in major roles, right? Like in front of the camera or as the lead or as the hero or whatever. But like horror movies, not only were black people creating their own horror movies, right? Which we actually still have a lot, which is really surprising. We still have like a lot of footage and these movies, like physical media of these things that black people were creating, right?
Yes.
Um, but like you can track what's going on in the world through horror. And I think that is so fascinating. And that's what makes them so cathartic to me because I'm like, oh, okay. Not only is this horror movie world something that I can be ready for, you know what I mean? That is like, okay, these movies pale in comparison to like what's happening on the outside. Which is why in a lot of my horror reviews as of late, like a movie really or a TV show or whatever really kind of has to hook me for me to like write about it or you know what I mean? Or think that like, what's something interesting I have to say? You know what I mean? Because what we have going on right now in the world, like like we are experiencing some real legitimate horror in reality right now that like horror movies are have always been an escape, but like now it's like, please, I need a horror movie. It's like it's like a drug. Like, please, please, I need a new horror movie. Like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. So it's like, give me Alien Romulus, give me Evil Dead Rise, please get me out of here. But
Y-
like, I agree. They are so it's only something you would know only through watching them.
Yeah.
from like having a good kind of array of horror that you've seen and seeing like how black people have been treated right across the span of horror movies, and you can see, like I say, you can watch them from when they started to now, and you can see the political trajectory. You can see, okay, well, this is how, whether women were in horror, if they had a role or no role, and you can see, okay, now they become the leads, now they become the final girl, right? Like you
Yes.
can see all of these different things happen. He's like, oh, okay, no gay people, no queer people. Okay, now they're gay people, they're queer people. Oh, they die. Okay. No trans people. Okay, they die too. Oh, wait, they live. Now they're the, now they're a part of the main cast and crew, and you know what I mean? So like it's cathartic in that way because we also have us who are from these horror communities, right? Making these movies, and like, people are like, what, horror movies political? I'm like, oh yes, extremely, extremely, extremely so. That probably, I wonder if I would say they're the most political genre. Maybe.
I think so. I mean, I would agree. You know, especially since back in the day, like I feel like it's always been that way.
Yeah. 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 I'm a put a pin. We're gonna put a pin in that. I think so. Um but like I say, like you can just track it, and like I'm gonna mention it again. That horror noir documentary was so good because they started from the beginning, right?
Yes.
And even things that you would not necessarily assume or say is horror in the traditional sense, because like we say, so much of what is horror is political, right? So, you know, that there's these through lines that we can just track it, and you can just be like, this is the racial animus right now, and you can track
Yes.
it, right? You say like, okay, this is this is how, like, speaking of another hard text, the black guy always die. It was it the black guy always
The
dies
black
first,
guys
and
always die first. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Speaking of horror fam, speaking of, that was also written by Dr. Robin Means Coleman and Mark Harris. Shout out to them. But like the
Yes.
fact that we even have that as a trope in the first place. You know what I mean? That like, the fact that we were like, okay, there were black women in horror movies, and then the bottom fell out. There were no black women in horror movies. It was only like kind of like black men only, right? And then another upswing. Like you can literally just see, right? Like these ebbs and flows all the time, and you can just track it. Like what's going on pop culture, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you can also just see like, okay, who does Hollywood think, right, will sell, right? Who's gonna sell, right? So like you can just track it. It's just really fascinating.
Yes, yes. I love that answer. I love that answer because I think
Mhm.
it does reign true, especially like if you track it through the decades, you know, it's like timestamps, you know, on what's relevant, you know, and what's going on in the conscience of the mind, especially in America, you know, in American culture, you know. It things just pop out. Things just pop out,
Mhm.
you know. Now, do you have any I know we talked a little bit about this before, but do you have any favorite, horror television shows that stand out,
Ooh, speaking of existential crises, Netflix, Black Mirror. Shout out to Black Mirror. Okay. Mm. Um, Black Mirror, top tier, top tier. I love Black Mirror. Um, Pretty much anything Mike Flanagan puts out, like I'm there. I'm there.
Oh, oh,
Let me see other TV shows. Always the classics. So, like we mentioned, we can go back to the childhood classics. I'm trying to think new TV shows. I need to get into that show. Evil. Is that what it's called? I think it's just called Evil.
it is so good. It is
That's
so
what I've
good.
heard. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. It's so good. And like I just kind of couldn't keep up with it. And that's kind of the thing with now. We have so much, right? That I'm not saying we have too much. You can never have too much, but you can have too much.
It makes you think. Like I like that it makes
Mhm.
you think. So I'm excited to see because just having a conversation with you, I'm excited to like hear your breakdown and hear your take on a show like that, and see what you have to say about it because it's one of those ones that you definitely there's a lot of themes, it's more so about the themes. So
I'm trying
yeah.
to think of some. I know I'm blanking on some good horror TV shows. Let's see. Uh Channel Zero. Ooh, Channel Zero was good. Um
Yes. Yes.
the original seasons of American Horror Story, like I think they'll never touch that again. They'll never
Nah.
touch that again. That was it seems like that was a moment like in time, and that's it. Like the door closed. Like the door closed. Like I have not watched American Horror Story, I think since Freak Show, I think that was the last one I watched. I think. I may be having the timeline wrong, but like any of them obviously that like had Angela Bassett, we were there. So you're like Angela
Oh yeah.
Bassett. Oh, we're there. Okay. Um, let me see. Penny Dreadful was good. I miss Penny Dreadful. That was good.
Shout out to
Uh
Penny Dreadful.
The Strain with Guillermo del Toro, that was good.
Yes.
That was good. That, kind of went some places I was not expecting. Um, Speaking of other vampires, What We Do in the Shadows, if you like a little horror humor, you know what I mean? A little razzle dazzle, a little horror humor. And shout out to it. It is still going. Still going. I
Crazy.
and I actually wish, speaking of horror, I'm a huge fan of, let's say, like I'm a huge fan of like the Munsters and the Adams Family, right? Like those, speaking of like gateway horror, right? The original TV series, which I caught like back in the day, like on TV Land, and then like reruns and so on, right? I think we really need some more horror humor shows, like What We Do in the Shadows. You know what I mean? Like we have like obviously a lot of really gritty hard, horror all the time, but I think it would be really nice if we had just like more either like horror families, whether it was like a mixed kind of mixed monster family like the Munsters,
Yeah.
or just a dark kind of macabre family like the Adams Family. Like I think a show like that would hit. I think it would be, yeah.
I agree. I agree.
And it
Or like what's that? Funny. It's a. I think it's called like Funny People. No, not Funny People, but Strange People or something. It's like an animated show, but it's
mhm,
horror-esque. I think it was on Cartoon
mhm.
Network. Um, yeah, I forget the name. I gotta find the name.
But
Send it.
yeah, we are being seriously deprived. Like and it actually kind of blows my mind. I think that's why people were really excited when they saw like Rob Zombie do like the Monsters like reboot like movie or whatever.
Yeah,
Because like that's like a niche of horror that like we really haven't had like much of, and like also not in a very, very long time. Like why we have not had a new kind of lighthearted, horror family rom-com, or not rom-com, but sitcom type deal, you know what I mean? Or type format, right? Um, but yeah, like, and I think that's why a lot of people, obviously, we had like our consumer base that was locked into, speaking of Netflix again, Netflix took over the world, sorry. Wednesday, right? Like you already had your horror people. They're like, Wednesday. We love Wednesday. We stand the Adams Family over here. So like you already had that base of people that was already locked in, that was already a lock. And then obviously you have like Gen Z and everybody up under us now that's, the TikTok, generation and stuff. They can like, oh, I can make a meme or a GIF out of this or whatever. You know what I mean? So, and then that was like, and speaking of introducing them to right, horror that we were long familiar with, if they weren't familiar with it already. Like, it seems like every couple years or so now, you notice we are getting like a new Adams Family animated something, which is
Yes.
really interesting. I'm like, who's got the Adams Family copyright? Because y'all are just Adams Family, Adams Family, Adams Family.
All over the place. All over the
Mhm,
place. You know.
mhm.
But
All
it's
over.
fun. It's fun though. It's a fun thing. Like I love that you mentioned Mike Flanagan earlier. Like I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite out of his like Netflix, legacy?
Oh, I'm as good as the others were. I think Hill House. I think Hill House, still, just. I mean, like I say, when you set the bar that high, that high, trying to have your next thing after that. Not that they were bad, not that they weren't good, but like you say, like speaking of time capsule, going back and watching Hill House over again. Whoo! Like,
Oh,
yeah, Hill House slapped, okay?
that Hill House rewatch hits every time. I'm
Mhm,
still in my feels every time. Like, I think like Hill House is probably the best done for me, but
mhm,
I feel like the most a close second, because it got me emotionally, it got me crying. I'm like, I'm crying for a damn ghost,
mhm.
again. It was the haunting of Bly Manor, that was
Yeah, that had some moments, I agree. And then the most recent, The Fall of the House of Usher was really good, but I think obviously what was the draw for a lot of us, was definitely Carla. Carla, Gugino, like, oof. Like, that's
yeah,
why, like, we say, like, don't throw older actors away. Let them continue to act because Carla, fine wine, okay? Like, and literally, she was like the hook. Everybody else obviously came swinging, from the other anthology series that he's done, and reusing some of the same actors, which is a good thing, which I like, right? Can give them more opportunities, more work, so on and so forth. But yeah, like Carla as death as the entity was was fantastic. Was fantastic.
crazy, crazy. And I think that's what what's that, Mike Flanagan and Ryan Murphy, have in common. Like they do not
Mhm.
throw away the older actors because they know that, they're gonna come through. They're gonna come through
Mhm.
every
They're
time.
gonna deliver. They're gonna deliver. They're gonna eat. I mean, they're gonna teach the young people something. Like, this is why I am who I am. This is why I'm number 1 on the call sheet. That's
Exactly.
mhm. Mhm.
Exactly. Now, I've got another question for you. Now, do you have a favorite horror villain, that sticks out, if you like your go-to, if you have a go-to horror villain?
Ooh, you know what? I have a couple, but since obviously we just talked about Mike Flanagan and one of my favorite horror movies that he's ever done, I know some people might think, well, that was just a sequel, sort of. How could that be great? Doctor Sleep. Woo! Listen. Yum, delicious. Rose the Hat is one of my like of the new millennium, like as far as favorite favorite villains, and I love a villain sometimes. Sometimes I love a one-note villain that's just like, "I'm evil," and that's it.
Yeah.
And then some I love that have interiority, right?
Wow.
Sometimes I love those that have interiority, but I would probably say, Rose the Hat from Doctor Sleep, um, Always and Forever, since we brought him up, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, Always. I'm
Yes.
trying to think always who's gonna do it for me. Um, I wish we had gotten one more good one as far as Candyman is concerned. because what he brought to the role, I mean, he was just obviously like act like a master class as far as like acting is concerned, you know. Um but let me see, favorite villains. But like I know sometimes when we talk about a favorite horror character, usually they die. So I'm trying to think like those that have had either a legacy or leave that much of an impact that you're just like, ooh, um, hmm. I know there's more, but I don't think I can. I don't think I can pull them from memory. But I mean, they all gave, you know, they all gave what needed to be, gave,
They delivered. You know.
mhm. They deliver every time. They deliver every time. So shout out to all of our horror movie, like our literally our horror movies would not work without you. So shout out to y'all.
Listen, it's you guys make the world go round. You definitely make the world go round. You
Hmm.
know. Now, with you being a writer and the way that your mind works, I like to ask people this question. Like we're in the age of like the metaverse and things like that, and there's space for horror and things like that in there. So if I were to put on the Oculus goggles and I'm stepping into the universe that Danny created, like just paint the picture. Like what does the sky look like? What does the environment look like when I put on the Oculus goggles?
Ooh, you know, that, that's a good question. That is a very
Thank
good
you.
question. Hmm. Maybe it depends on if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. It depends on if it's sunny outside, if it's raining outside. That is a very good question. Wow, that is a really good question.
Thank you.
Hmm. How to even answer, because even when I write, I feel like in my mind I've got a big board with like red string connecting this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. That is a really good question. Maybe it would be just like that. That like I say, like sometimes I love a movie or a TV show that just, does a pivot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or really just kind of defies our expectations, or is the brand new one to do the thing, right? So like, like Get Out. I mean, and speaking, I love how earlier one of our questionnaires, mentioned how, this new Brandy movie looked like, a Get Out,
Yes.
facsimile or something like that. But that is a fantastic question. I don't know. It'd probably be like, I don't know, like the Sesame Street. I guess if you put on the goggles, it'd be like the Sesame Street of horror. So like on this lane, you have Universal Monster Lane. On this, you go over here and you have, I don't know, Guillermo del Toro Avenue, and like over here you have I don't know, you have, you have your you have kaiju towers over here up in the clouds, Um I don't know. That is a very good question. Maybe it'd be like that. Maybe it would be literally kind of like a land, just like a big old land kind of thing. Speaking of movies that had like horror in it, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like you go through the
Ah,
little door and there's Toontown, it'd be Horror Town. You know what I mean? Like it
yes.
literally like everybody would be welcome. Everybody could come. Everybody could, now there would be a list. Just be real. There would be a list of, oh, wait a minute. Rape revenge films. Hold on. Let's see what your criteria is. Let's see what the movie. Oh, sorry. You can't. Depending on what's in that movie, you can't come. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's see, movie. Did you treat, this group of people up? Sorry. You're not on the list. You can't come. Now, that's something that I love that actually we're doing now. We're demanding more, You know what I mean? We're demanding better for
Yes.
various people in horror because like we talked about earlier that like you can track that tide of what horror was doing, right? You could track, pop culturally, socially, right? You can
Yes.
track all of that politically. So like, I'm sorry, there's certain movies that couldn't come into Horror Town. I'm sorry. You can't come. I'm sorry. You
Yeah,
can't you're
everybody
not on the
can't
list.
go.
Yeah, everybody can't be on the list. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. Even though you may be like, either a classic or the first to ever do it or whatever, whatever. Depending on, if you have if you have redeeming qualities, you'll come with a disclaimer.
I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I love that answer. It reminds me of like Universal Studios, just walking down the lot and seeing different
Mhm.
things. So I would totally pay for that. I would totally pay for
Mhm.
that. So I want to thank you, for rocking out with me, and answering all the questions and getting to know you a little bit better through the lens of your love for horror and the genre. And I have one more question,
Mhm.
for you before we rock out of here. And that question is, if there was a horror movie villain character, entity, spirit, a person, who you could be, for 24 hours,
Ooh.
who or what would it be?
Oh, that is such a tough question.
Yeah.
That's a hard question. Man, that is a really hard question.
Yeah. Yeah. I try and just throw it out there. Just throw it out there.
Cause I'm like, I'm just like, would I want to be, the one that's chopping everybody down? Or, would I want to be the big, eldritch monster creature, you know what I mean, of the woods or whatever? Uh, I don't know. That is such a good question. Hmm. And I think one of the reasons why I'm hesitant, because it's like, huh, I never thought about the shoe being on the other foot where like, oh wait, I'm the one who's gonna be like killing everybody or like blowing people away like Godzilla or whatever. Like I never even like thought of it in that perspective. You know what I mean? See, now you've given me some
Mhm.
food for thought. I don't know how have other people answered this question.
It's funny because it really depends on their personality. Like I
Uh-huh.
know when I asked my dad this question, he said he wanted to be Freddy Krueger, to haunt his enemies'
Mm.
dreams, and yeah,
Oh.
so it really depends. Like, some people they want it to be Hollow Man, or the Invisible Man, and just
Mhm.
or Ghostface, or Chucky. It's all sorts of answers, but it's funny because it's another question that's very telling of the person's personality.
Mhm. Now, now that you've said that and you kind of couch it that way, I think definitely, shout out, some about Candyman just hits for me. I wish in the new Candyman movie there had been, some candy women running around because the way that like, that retribution would have been so powerful, right? That, the conjuring, the saying of the name, right? And like the whole oral history part of it for me, like I love different horror movies that do that sometimes that like, work with that conjure element or that like this is the thing that's been passed down for generations, right? Like we know this story because we say the name of blah, right? We say the name of the thing or we say the name of the person, right? Or we say the name of the
Yes.
place, you know what I mean? And like some of the best horror movies like have that, thing and then the scare chord, right? Like speaking of like the old school movies, Dracula, lightning, thunder, you know what I mean?
Dracula.
Right? So like maybe, maybe I'm thinking that maybe I'd be in the in the candy lane because listen, there's some people who need to get got, and they haven't been gotten quick enough for me. That they need they mm-mm. They have been wreaking too much havoc. And I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, say my name. Say it. You know what? I'm gonna come. Yeah, I'll be right over. I will be right over.
Yeah, say her name. Say her name. I dig it. I
Mhm,
dig it. And I dig what you said too. Like it would add a whole new different like depth, to it, especially because all the things that women go through, black women's,
mhm,
as well. So it's just like are we ready for the think pieces, that's gonna come from
mhm.
a candy man or candy woman, that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be
Yeah,
crazy.
we still actually don't have a lot of that where like, black people on screen like killing people and stuff. Like we really don't have a lot of that like at all.
No, we don't. No, we don't. We need more. We need more. But that's why it inspires me just being in the horror community and just
Mhm.
mingling with all different folks and all different content creators and writers, directors and all that cuz everybody's has a similar mission, to make us more visible, to
Mhm.
the folks out there, you know.
And I'm appreciative to you and like everyone who is watching today and like just all of us. I love the horror community so much. Like I love you all like so much. Like never forget that. Like I love you all so much. Like your minds, like I'm learning from you all. Like and it's reciprocal,
Yes,
right?
it is. It is.
That like these are like the questions that you've been like throwing at me are like some things that I've never, you know what I mean, have either been back here in the back of my mind or I've never even like, like would never have thought of.
Listen, that's the key.
Mhm.
That is the key, to expand the mind and gain different perspectives. That's why I love talking to people from all different backgrounds. Not just people that agree and like the movies that I like. But people who are like, oh, I dig this type of horror movie, or I dig that type of horror movie, or because I'm from this culture, I
Mhm.
dig this type of
Mhm.
movie. I'm gonna recommend this one to you, and it's just like it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, to mingle, So I want to thank you, again for stopping by, Evil Live and kicking it with me and kicking it with the horror family and chopping it up. I don't know what the hell happened to the comments. Like I think they they froze after like an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, because our I started seeing our views go up like they was going like they kept climbing and then I was like, "Damn, the comments is frozen." So,
Oh no.
shout out to StreamYard. So anybody who was commenting something, I wasn't ignoring y'all. I just can't see y'all right now. So,
Yeah, I'm so sorry everybody.
yeah,
I didn't have YouTube. I didn't have YouTube going while this was going, and
yeah,
I don't know if they were still going
yeah.
over there. I have no idea.
It's they going somewhere, but it's cool. We definitely gonna have Danny back on. For one of these discussions. I have discussions with the horror community about different topics, and just your brain and just the way that you talk about horror and in general. Because I love folks who are passionate about the genre and just getting them together with other folks who are passionate about the genre as well and just talking shit. Very, very cool, very calm, very relaxed. So can't wait to have you back on. And again, thank you for joining. Make sure that y'all follow her, on the social medias. Also you have anything to plug, before we run up out of here?
Um, Again, you can find me on Medium. That's my name. I think it's Danny Bethea, medium.com, or you can just really honestly, you can just put my name, which is actually cool, but also kind of creepy. You can put my name in Google, right? And like you can even just find all the stuff that like I've either ever written or been attached to. I have interviews on YouTube. I have different podcasts that I've been on. Even like I try to have in Twitter. I don't call it the other thing. I don't call it X or whatever. I
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
Twitter. It's Twitter for me. It'll be Twitter forever and always. On Twitter, I have the different things that I've written for, and that's not even like the full list. So yeah, if it's online, I've probably done it. I think the only thing I've never done is probably like video game like live streams, which I would
Okay.
not know how to do. I'm tech savvy to a point, like, and it's just something I've never thought like, how to live stream video games.
Listen, we gonna get there. We gonna get there. I've been trying to get behind the scenes of that as well.
Mhm.
It is definitely math, you know. So
Mhm.
we gonna figure it out. But thank you for stopping by again. Thank you all in the comments for stopping by. Again, it froze, so I can't see everybody. But Paul Draws, thank you for stopping by. Bobby, thank you for stopping by. Jaleesa, Double Feature Podcast. Dell, thank you for showing some love. Jody, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Germs, thank you for stopping by. Everybody's showing love. If I missed you, apologies. Ernesto, thank you for stopping by. Mike, Wilkie, Corey, thank you for stopping by, showing love, but yes, that's been another episode of Evil Live, as always, keep it spooky, watch something good tonight, and peace, love, and horror, folks, and we up out of this thing.